We manufactured hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these books for integrators all over planet Earth. There are integrators in Russia, Australia, in France, in England, in the United States, and all over the world purchasing these books. Some of them were demoing and then engaging us as a firm to do the work. The problem with the business model is many of them were showing that to their client and then actually not delivering any of that. And that stung. That was actually one of my drivers when I closed the business.
Welcome to the Flywheel Effect, the podcast where ambition meets expertise in the world of luxury home services. Whether you're an entrepreneur, a small business owner, or a forward-thinking professional, this is your platform for growth, profit, and prosperity. Each episode, we dive deep into how to leverage data for smarter business decisions and share insights that help you transition from technician to visionary. Let's jump in.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Flywheel Effect, sponsored by Vital, your source for creating a better life for you and your business. This is Brent Sonnek-Schmelz, along with my co-host, Matt. Matt, how are you doing today?
Man, I'm doing amazing. Spent this week at Ole Miss with my daughter for orientation. We did have a little snafu, got to spend an unplanned night in Dallas with no luggage Wednesday night, but which is the first, considering all the travel that I do, the first time I've ever had to take a shower and put dirty clothes back on. So I'm grateful that after as many trips as I've made, this is my first time. So I tried to look at the positive side of that, but glad to be home 24 hours later than I was supposed to be. But yeah, overall feeling amazing. Looking forward to this weekend.
With that, welcome Ron Callis. How are you doing, Ron?
Oh, it's a great day. I'm honored and happy to be here with the two of you.
Now, Ron is probably should be known by most of our listening audience as the founder and CEO of One Firefly, which he has run since he founded it back in 2007. He's also an engineer by trade. He's worked at Letronic Restaurant, knows the integration space backwards and forwards, and has helped, I don't know, how many thousands of integrators level up their marketing and sales game, Ron?
I've certainly talked to many thousands around the world. I'd say that have been a customer of One Firefly over the last 17 years. Probably somewhere between 1 and 2,000 firms, probably.
That's great. That's touching a lot of people, right? When you think of the reach of those firms and all their employees and all the growth and there needs to really drive revenue, which ultimately is what you're there to help them do.
Absolutely. No, we've impacted a lot of lives, both the lives of the team members at One Firefly and, of course, the lives of our clients. When we think of the purpose of the business, I know we'll ultimately get to this, but back in 2019, we kind of took a step up in adopting EOS and defining our mission, our purpose, our values. And I think that was one of the stepping stones for our ability to continue to scale and grow the company. But ultimately defining our purpose, which is to help people feel proud, prosperous, and connected. And if you break those words down, proud, like we want our team members to be proud of working at One Firefly and proud of what they do and proud of how they help people. But we want the business owners we serve to be proud of their businesses and share it with their team and their communities. Prosperous, we want our team members to thrive. We want our clients to thrive. If our clients aren't thriving, then they're not going to continue to engage us, frankly. Many of them have found so much value in engaging with Vital because you're helping them engineer prosperity into their business. And it's not something when you launch a business, you just automatically know how to do. You have to be taught in many cases how to make that business prosper. And then, ultimately connecting community. And that is, our team being connected with each other. I think that leads to a great culture, but also helping our integrators. And we go beyond integrators. We also work with some other, home service company types, but helping them ultimately reach out to their community to grow their brand, grow their visibility. Because the little secret about branding and marketing is that when you do a good job of that, the work comes to you a little bit easier with a little bit less friction. And you're ultimately able to close those projects at a higher dollar value. and you're able to close those projects more quickly when you're well networked into the right communities in your marketplace. So as a long answer to say we impact a lot of lives, it brings me a lot of joy. That's one of the benefits of being able to continue, or one of the results of continuing to persevere. Any entrepreneur listening knows that word, perseverance and grit, but persevere as an entrepreneur, which has enabled us to impact a lot of lives. And that's one of the joys of entrepreneurship for sure. I would be with my in-ears, but all that's left after my dog ate everything else is just this piece of it. The cord and the other one are in her stomach.
Right. So that's great, Ron. I think it leads two things. I think that word prosper. One, I want to kind of go with how you came up with those words and whether it was part of your EOS process. For those that don't know, EOS means Entrepreneur's Operating System. It's a book, Traction, Gino Wickman. We can maybe we'll reference that in the show notes. But that word prosper is one of Vital's words too.
Okay.
Right? Like what is it you say? What are the three words, man? I'm drawing a blank right now.
Profit, grow, and prosper.
Right. So,
or grow, profit, prosper. We use them in different versions.
And that's what we use as far as an external messaging, as far as how we want to help the people that we're working with. Yours, I take it, is both internal and external.
That's exactly right. Yeah, we designed our purpose. I mean, some of the fancy business people will call it a company's vision, but it's like, why does your business exist? Like, what's the big idea of why it exists? And what difference are you trying to make in the world? And when we think about that, I think that I'll tell you, just as an owner, entrepreneur, it's so much more fun and energizing for me to think about building a business where people actually want to work here and want to build their career here. And I like versus, they're being made to do this, or they're clocking in and clocking out. Like, I never had in my mind of wanting to operate a business where people would want to clock in and clock out. So when you think about it that way, well, then you think about the prosperity of your team, then you start to make certain types of decisions with how you compensate them, how you acknowledge them, how you reward them, how you, focus on getting time together. And then you can reflect that back out to the customer. And it's the same. The customer needs to feel that it's a mutually rewarding relationship. A relationship means both parties have to participate.
I think this is a really important lesson for our audience, for integrators and other home service business owners. I think that what you're describing is how building the proper culture, building a team that appreciates what they're doing, has an incredibly positive impact on the customer experience. And I think that lesson's lost on a lot of entrepreneurs. A lot
of entrepreneurs can stay focused on, whatever the widget they're designing or selling or service they're offering. And I'm all of, my foundation, or at least I'll call it my education, is in engineering. And in engineering, you learn about process development and operations. And my study was mechanical engineering. And, that's a nice, broad, generic degree where you touch on a lot of the different engineering disciplines. And I've carried some of that thinking into business. And in business, it's a good idea if you can remove friction at places throughout the business so that ultimately you can, do the thing that you're trying to do with reduced friction and higher probabilities of success or prosperity. And so one of those that I came to in the middle of my career, not at the beginning, it was not immediately obvious to me when I launched the business. I call them purchasing mistakes. I had to purchase a bunch of mistakes. Is that if I had a better team environment where they felt better appreciated and rewarded, and the right people are in the right seat, that's another adage from EOS. And ultimately, business is just easier. And if you have those right people that enjoy doing whatever the practice is, this is for any role in the business. It's not for a sales role, or it's not for an account management or to talk integrator. It's not, the programmer's job or the salesperson or the project manager. You get every single person in your company that believes what you believe. Now that's the captain, that's the person, the owner, the operator, the GM, that has defined ultimately mission, vision, and values. And if every single human being on your team aligns with those beliefs, there's reduced friction in the business. And those people are more empowered to go out and practice their art, practice their craft, be craftspeople. They're going to do it with joy in their heart, and they're going to take better care of the customer. And if they take care of the customer is going to take care of the business. And so that's how I think about the company we've built at One Firefly. Is we take great care of our team. Our team takes great care of our clients, and our clients reward us with renewed business, recurring business, and lifelong relationships. And we have many of our clients at One Firefly that have been with us 10 years or more. And that's neat. And that's not always true. And we are far from perfect. And we've made plenty of mistakes, and we still make mistakes. We probably made mistakes this week, but we make less of them because our team, ultimately, one of the other benefits of a great culture is your team stays. So when your team stays, you get to retain that institutional knowledge, the knowledge of your product, your process, your customers, your industry. And that's a flywheel. I think this podcast is the Flywheel Effect. That creates a flywheel effect inside of your business, because all of that knowledge and passion for people practicing their craft, it is retained. You didn't pour into these people, invest all of your time and energy, and they walk down the street and give that to the next business owner. That's very frustrating. And I've been there, and it's not fun. And so it's a matter of learning how to have that happen less often.
Wait,
Go ahead. Go ahead, man.
Yeah, sorry. So, Ron, I love all of this, and I think philosophically it's great, and I think 100% we can all buy into that. I'm going to guess our listeners have probably heard a lot of this, right? It's like, hey, let's build a great culture. Let's take care of our. So that's amazing. Let's drill down a little bit into how did you get here? I think what would be most beneficial to our listeners is understanding a little bit of your journey. You weren't always here. You didn't always have an amazing culture. Let's talk about some of that journey a little bit so that our listeners can see themselves in your journey and borrow some of your confidence.
Let's go there. Where do you want to start?
Talk to me a little bit about when you started One Firefly. It was very different than what it is today in terms of service provider, right? So you went out there and you said, hey, I'm going to do this thing. And it's not even so much the thing that I want to talk about. I want to talk a little bit about the pivot. So share with us real briefly about what you thought was the business model from day one, and then what you identified as the reason for pivoting, and share with us a little bit about kind of the why behind that.
Sure. So I launched the business as an engineering services company. That brand was called Firefly Design Group. Maybe some of your listeners were our early customers back in 07 or 08. Matt, you were an early customer, very, very early on. And that business was born because as a Lutron and a Crestron, regional manager or sales engineer, I observed all of these integrators. This was in the early 2000s, folks, between 2000 and 2007, across the Midwest and across the East Coast into Florida and the Caribbean. Those are some of my territories. I observed all these awesome, passionate business owners doing projects, but I had an opinion that these projects could be more sophisticated in terms of their documentation, which I theorized would likely lead to happier clients and more profitable projects if things were a little more organized. That was my theory. I would say it seemed like a relatively good assumption. I did not back it up with a great deal of research in terms of asking. So this is a mistake I made, a lesson I purchased. If you're going to go down a venture, folks, do your research. I did not do the research to determine if the marketplace would be willing to pay for such services. I just knew they needed it. So I quit my high paying job and I jumped off the cliff. I started to sew a parachute on my way down to the bottom of the cliff. And I fortunately was able to, pop that chute, inches above the ground, because the other challenge we had is I launched that business into the brilliant move of launching it right into the Great Recession.
Yeah.
So for those that lived through 2008, 9, and 10, it was a tough time, certainly in North America, in the construction industries. But nonetheless, I learned how to survive regardless. I always made payroll. I've told that story many times. I'm very proud of that. I always made payroll. There was never a period where I didn't make payroll. There were many a Thursday where I would call Matt and I would say, Matt, are you ready to hire me for that pre-wire drawing we talked about 3 months ago? Because I could really use a yes right now.
Right.
And Matt or others would say, yeah, Ron, let's do it. Let's do that pre-wire drawing or that rack elevation. And so we'd collect the deposit and I'd be able to make payroll on Friday. But fast forward, I did that for 7 or 8 years and it was very hard. It was very
Ron,
hard.
Sorry, before you jump into that, you brought up a lesson that I'd like to drill into a little bit, right? Which is you had an idea that you were absolutely in love with.
Yes.
Right? This idea of I see a need in the marketplace. I have entrepreneurial spirit.
Yes.
And I have heard as an entrepreneur that all I need to do is go find a need and I'll be successful. I'm guessing some of that.
And if I go sign a 3-year lease and put a 5-year lease on equipment and go hire, why hire one when I could go hire 3 people right away?
Right. Yeah.
And I had this vision of an architectural, I started to imagine what I would feel like walking into that office wearing a suit with all of this. It was so backwards in terms of how I approached it.
Right? Like
pretty standard. And that's kind of why I want to drill into it, because I want to ground some of this. Like our listeners have felt this way, right? They see let's call it an MDU project and like, man, I've never done MDUs, but they need technology or they need cabinets or whatever. And, I'm going to go do this. And man, what an amazing idea. And I think all entrepreneurs have, I would imagine, experienced this, where you see a need, you think I'm the best person to fill that need. But then and you get hyper focused on being able to solve for that. So you mentioned, hey, I didn't do any research. I didn't do this. If you were to go sit down with Ron in 2007, so the Ron of today got into his Wayback Machine, go sat down with Ron and you had a coaching session with him, what would you have suggested, just real simply from the frame of, I've got this amazing idea? What would you have coached Ron through to do differently in testing that idea or research or whatever? Or would you have changed anything?
It would have been dramatically different. Being green and naive is a benefit and a curse to the entrepreneur. Because if I had known what I know now, I'm not even confident I would have taken the leap to start the business, because I would have actually gone and done thorough research where I would have predefined my engineering a la carte list of services. And I would have put together what I think I needed to charge to be a successful, profitable business, at least based on my knowledge then. And I would have gone out to the marketplace and determined, would they be willing to sign up and pay for those services? And I probably would have put together advised that the game plan would have been some type of recurring model for people to receive those services on a consistent basis so that my business would have recurring cash flow and stability. And I would have determined whether that was a viable business model to go to market with. And based on that knowledge and awareness, that would have determined whether that would have been the business to launch with. That, for example, is today at One Firefly. When we launch a new service, you can rest assured we've done that research. And when you see us launch a new product or service, we have stress tested the idea Some of the most highly paid people in my organization, their job is to be Ron's governor on his ideas. Because some of my ideas are good and some of them are destined for failure. And the Ron of 2007 had no governor. It was
Right.
just forward.
Yeah.
And today, I'll say I won't proceed on 9 out of 10 ideas. And the one idea I do proceed on, I lean in too hard because we've done the research.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
awesome. And I want to hit on a couple of things, and then Brent, I'll hand it off to you. One of the lessons I just took away from that is your journey is your journey. Because if you went back, if you did go in your Wayback Machine and you gave Ron that new information, you wouldn't be where you are today. And so I think recognizing that the journey is the journey is the journey, it's okay. What I also picked up from there, and maybe I'm putting words in your mouth, is that it's okay to be naive early on in the journey. It's okay because you're going to take chances. You're going to buy lessons. That's just part of the process, right? Yeah. Okay.
You need to be willing. It helps. I won't say you need to do anything. I'm not in a position to tell anybody to do anything. I would challenge it's a good idea if you are and remain someone always ready to learn and be open to acknowledge that you're going to always in entrepreneurship and business be making mistakes and you need to be okay with that. One of the keys, I think, to successful entrepreneurship is your ability and willingness to make decisions and to gather information and execute quickly so that you can fail quickly, so that you can move forward to the ideas that work quickly. And just know that as long as you are learning along the way, when you look around and see entrepreneurs that, in your definition have made it, whether that's size or prestige or revenue or profitability or reputation, those are often the entrepreneurs that have been really good at learning along the way and keeping their lessons. And so they'll still make mistakes, but they're not going to make those same mistakes. They're going to make different mistakes. And the entrepreneurs that remain the same size or don't grow are often the entrepreneurs that continue to make the same mistakes.
I think one mistake that I heard you say that you did make was over hiring on an idea. And I think that's a mistake that I hear over and over again, that you can, and it's a lesson that I've learned, and I think others need to learn, is you can stress test an idea without over hiring. So don't jump to running before you're walking, I think is one of those pieces that what you described, old Ron would explain to new Ron, hey, just hire one person, even if probably you needed to start Firefly Design Group anyway.
In 2000, I'll tell you a quick exact version of that. In 2015, it was nearly our biggest failure. In 2015, we were scaling. The game plan was in 2015, scale the business, grow. So I started hiring salespeople, and because I hired salespeople and naturally they were going to be successful, I went and hired a bunch more producers because now I needed producers to do all of this work that this future sales team was going to succeed at. And fast forward, 2015 did not go as planned. And we were thoroughly overstaffed, and it almost put us out of business. We were on the verge. I don't know, some people know that. Maybe I've told the story publicly before, but it was very bad and it was very scary. There was a moment in 2015. I remember, for those that know David Weinstein at Lutron, I remember meeting him at CEDIA in September of 2015. And I remember sitting with at CEDIA and I said, David, do you think Lutron's hiring? And I went home and I sat down to put my resume together. And I stared at a blank page. I hadn't put a resume together since 2003. And I was like, I don't even know how to do this. And then I closed my laptop. I said, I'm not putting a resume together, because if I put a resume together, that's me giving up. And that was where the biggest pivot, you had mentioned it earlier, Matt, happened in our business. And it was the acknowledgement, and I'm going to give credit to I'll mention it. We can go there deeper if you want. But a couple of years prior, I had added a member of our team. His name's Taylor. And Taylor added financial management and operational management structure to my ability as a visionary and a salesperson and the idea person. He added operational stability to the business. And in him adding operational stability, he helped me better understand through the lens of data and facts, not emotions, what was actually working in the business and what wasn't working in the business. Not how did I feel. And remember, I'm an engineer running an engineering business. I never would have called us a marketing company. But the reality is the marketing piece of our business was the most successful part of our business.
What was the marketing piece of your business at that time?
It was probably around 30 clients.
How did you end up doing any marketing in the engineering business is really the question.
Oh, goodness. Oh, that's all right. So I'm going to answer that. I'm going to come back to that if you don't mind, Brent. I'll describe the how. But through the analysis of the data and the business sectors in 2015 and the failure of overstaffing and the pressures it put on the business, we actually made the call in September of, I say we, Taylor and I, made the call in September of 2015 to shut down the office, close our engineering business, close our programming business, close every other distraction, and only double down into the marketing business, which I'll answer how we started doing that, and put all of our undivided attention into that specialty, that focus. And we decided to be the best in the world at marketing for AV integrators. And we have now grown the business 2016 to the present. We're in 2025, every single year on average 20% top line growth. And it is just with undivided, absolute focus on how do we grow this business and be more valuable to more people every single year. And it's resulted in a really neat story.
I want to hear how you ended up in any bit of marketing at all, because that's
So
actually
it was within months of the business opening, 2007. I was out talking to integrators saying that your life would be better if you had better presentation drawings to use in the discovery dialogue with clients, visualization drawings. We call them device location drawings. Put icons and TVs and touch panels on a drawing so that you could go back to a client and present your ideas. And that then proposal is not a QuickBooks list of parts, but rather a proper engineered proposal, meaning that you've done back end wiring schematics and rack elevations to validate you have all the pieces and parts, all the innies and outies that are likely needed in order for you to accomplish this scope that you've defined with your customer. And that all of the support documentation, if all of those things existed, you would run a better project. And by the way, yes, I'm asking you to pay a fair rate for this, but you should take our rate as an engineering firm and you should double it so that you make money on our services. And my client said, Ron, I see it. It makes so much sense, but my clients will never buy it.
I asked Matt if he's heard that before.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
So we found the answer, and there is an answer. And now we have, I'd say at this point, easily hundreds, if not thousands of integrators doing some version of what I'm about to describe. And that is, we started to create, number one, we started to create professional polished demonstration books of what a well-designed and documented project looks like. And we started to teach our integrators to use that in the upfront meetings with clients as a part of their presentation of who they were. It's in the DNA of the company to be a design engineering centric operation, because only a design centric operation is going to be able to deliver consistent quality that is necessary to make these very complicated systems work, not only today, but tomorrow. And it's going to enable us to better service these systems because they are complicated and they do break and they do need service. And if we're organized, we're going to be better prepared to do that. So we started to fabricate these books. It became called the sales portfolio. We manufactured hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these books for integrators all over planet Earth. There are integrators in Russia, Australia, in France, in England, in the United States, and all over the world purchasing these books. Some of them were demoing and then engaging us as a firm to do the work. The problem with the business model is many of them were showing that to their client and then actually not delivering any of that. And that stung. That was actually one of my drivers when I closed the business. There was a lot of, in my opinion, a lot of bait and switching happening. And I didn't feel good about it. I didn't feel good about, people being dishonest and maybe promising their clients services that they weren't ready or willing to deliver. But we then additionally I hired a web designer and we started building websites. I hired a graphic designer. We started doing logos, hired social media people, started doing social media posts, started hiring writers. I was building a marketing team. But if you had talked to me in 2008, 2009, 2010, we were an engineering firm that also had marketing services. It was very odd. It was an odd duck, but it was born out of the necessity. I was so stubborn that I wanted our engineering business to succeed that the problem-solving part of my brain said, well, I need to help them better present themselves to their customers so that they can be trusted, so that we can ultimately win that engineering sale.
So then
And
in
it
20
worked, but yeah, that's how that began.
So then in 2015, when you made this huge pivot, which is essentially eliminating the core of your business,
Yes.
what percentage of your revenue was marketing services?
That maybe in January of 2016, well, it quickly became 100%. But
Right.
in the fall of 2015, it was maybe 5 to 10%.
So, okay, so this is actually so fascinating to me, Ron, is that you had a business.
It was
That-
consistent.
It was good. It was
It was
fine.
millions of dollars, by the way. I mean,
Yeah.
it was a real business.
And you had how many employees?
Maybe
time?
at that time, maybe around 15 to, probably around 15 to 18.
Which is more employees than most integration houses that we know have. Like this
Right.
is a substantial business, a substantial small business making millions of dollars. 10% of your revenue is marketing.
Yes.
And you make the decision because you overinvested in your team and realized that this isn't great. And you had to have I'm kind of rehashing a little bit. You had a call to come to Jesus moment with your ops manager who says, look, Ron, this business is struggling, but we have this opportunity over here in this little corner of their business that's shining bright. What do you think about pivoting, eliminating 95% and focusing on this? And you said, let's go.
I said, let's go.
Takes such courage.
It was terrifying. I mean, my son was born in 2008. So I have a young child, I'm married. I've got a mortgage. I've got, at that point, I probably had some debt tied to me funding the business. But I felt it was selfish. I felt that I was capable of so much more. And I was not going to subsist in a business. My engineering business was flat to nominally growing 5% a year. My programming business, we were in the Crestron programming business. For those that remember that time period, this was Prodigy was out. Like, I'll just say that the world of custom programming was dying and the world of configured systems was growing. And I just cast into the future and I saw the future and I said, custom programming is not likely a place to grow a future. I was a decade late on that. I missed it by a decade. There was a lot of money made in 2000 to 2010 in programming. I entered too late. I entered on the last tail end of what could be a viable, scalable business, at least residentially.
Yeah.
And I saw that into the future. I spent a lot of my time as a hobby looking at a lot of futurist type content. I like to cast years into the future and predict. And I just couldn't see a future in that business. And the engineering business was there, but it was too hard and unscalable. The staff, sorry, I'm going to offend people, were all prima donnas. They all thought way too highly of themselves. And they put the entrepreneur in very tough spot that if they were to walk, the business is in a really tough spot. And they were hard to hire. The business was hard to get the recurring project. It was all project revenue. And yet I just saw this light of marketing, not all marketing, but much of marketing can be recurring. And so I felt that I didn't know exactly how I would do it, but I knew that if I focused my energies and my team's energies, we could figure it out. And
That's
so by cutting the payroll, cutting the expenses, we streamlined the business down. It's almost like we coiled up so that we could spring forward.
so. How many people
And
told you you're making a mistake?
what was that?
How many people told you you were making a mistake?
Oh, everybody. But that usually is my signal I'm doing it right.
Right.
I don't work on averages. No one gets wealthy doing what everyone does. No one becomes very successful doing what everyone does. I like to be the outlier.
Yeah, I think that's actually the only way. I mean, no one makes any real opportunity is there because people aren't seeing it.
Yeah.
Right.
So this is great, Ron. I'm sure there's a lot of people who are inspired by the story. It's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Let's talk a little bit about some of the lessons that our listeners might take away from this, right? So, you had this courage to make a pivot. What are some parallels? I mean, the home services business well. What are some parallels that you might see out there where some of our audience could borrow the courage that you had to make some of these changes?
An observation that I've had, and Brent, you and Matt probably have as well, is that I often talk to a business owner that has been of a similar, let's call it a similar size of revenue, whatever that is, 500,000 a year, 5 million a year, 15 million a year, but they've been at a similar size for an extended period of time. And they then talk about the fact that they're not satisfied with that. I would say a version of that conversation is most common, sub 5 million in revenue. So it's common for like that $1 million entrepreneur, that $2 million entrepreneur. And they talk about how hard they work, how many hours they work. They talk about how terrible employees are, how unreliable people are, how hard the market is, how life is not fair, how manufacturers make products that break. And the epiphany or the awareness I would want people to have is if you look around your market, yet there are people scaling their business. And if you are not scaling your business, the problem is the person in the mirror. It's nothing else. It's always you. And that was my lesson. So I'm not calling anyone out. I'm saying I called myself out. And that I realized, and I suffered for, 8 to 10 years, right? The idea that, and I would be the one to pass blame and point the finger. And as I became more aware that I was the reason we weren't succeeding or growing, then I could start to make corrective actions about me that enabled things to get easier, better, faster, stronger. And much of that was, for example, I go back to 2013, identifying my personal weakness around financial management and operational management, which again, I had to eat my humble pie because I was an engineer, gosh darn it. How could I need operational help? And it was absolutely what I needed, right? The metaphor is I was catching the fish, putting them in the boat, and they were jumping right back out of the boat. And I needed to catch those fish, put them in the boat, and feel confident someone's going to clean those fish and cook those fish so that I could bring in more fish because that was a skill that I had. And that was like a personal point of self-awareness. And then beyond that, within areas, I'll say maybe the most recent in the last 5 years, really the last 4 years, was me stepping out of owner-led sales. That was terrifying. Absolute. I could not imagine how to do it, but yet I had learned through interactions with others that it was doable. And that works really well with my psyche. I just need to know what's possible. I'm very comfortable not knowing how to do it. I just need to know that it's possible. Whether you tell me you've seen it, it's you practice this, or point me to a book or a consultant. Tell me it's possible, and then I'll go down that path to try to figure out how to get there. In my case with sales, I hired a sales consultant, company out of England called Immerse. They're now based out of Miami. And Immerse, they wonderful consultant, Ali, and he had helped other businesses engineer this change in a business. And I wanted to go down that path because ultimately that would allow me to deploy my energies and passions to the entirety of my business rather than singularly one-off working hand in glove with clients. As much as I enjoyed it, I love working with my integrators. I love working. I mean, it's a passion of mine. But I also had to step beyond that and say, but I'm now a limiting factor. I'm a bottleneck to the growth of my business. Because no salesperson hates worse than the owner telling you, look how easy I just closed this sale. Why can't you do it this way?
Was that a one-day switch, or did you take time to transition out?
Oh, it took, I'd say in total about 24 months.
Really? Okay. So it was a process for you to get comfortable with your team, to make sure they have a system. It wasn't just a one day. And I think that's actually, for home integrators, one of their big hurdles for the owners. When they're doing the sales and they don't want to do it, they don't want to do it and they want to abdicate.
Right.
You defined a process that allowed you to do it effectively without losing momentum in the business. That's actually a huge lesson in this process.
I agree. And, I picked up on something, Ron, that I'd like to continue, as the topic of conversation for kind of the rest of our time here together. You brought up the important point of, hey, wherever your business is today is a reflection of you as a leader, right? Whether your business is scaling 20% plus every single year, or it's been flat for the last 5 years, wherever it is, it has nothing to do with marketplace, nothing to do with product, or whatever. Maybe not nothing, but primarily it has everything to do with you as a leader. So let's focus on that. What was there a point in your growth where that became obvious to you? And was there a shift in the way you thought of yourself as a leader, or was this something that happened over time?
It's a great question. I'll define another big milestone where there was awareness that I needed more, something needed to be different, but also a lack of knowing exactly what the answer was. By 2019, so if you look at 16, 17, 18, 19, 4-year run of nice double-digit growth in the business. And at that point in time, we were patting ourselves on the back, me and a couple of our leaders. I can tell you, for me as a leader, I was very unsatisfied. And I would go as far as to say very unhappy. I was unhappy with a lot of what we were doing, how we were doing it, the standards of excellence that was incumbent throughout the team. So there was a leadership problem. There was a standards of excellence problem. There was a customer service problem. And so I had grown to that point, but I had a lack of clarity on how we would continue to do it. It just did. Yes, we did it for 4 years. Congratulations. I have no idea how we'll continue on this path. And so it was at that point that ultimately it landed us on EOS. And I won't preach on EOS, but there's different systems, there's schools of thought out there. EOS is a good one. The comedy is by 2019, I had already been referred the traction book 5 times by people in my orbit. 5 different occasions, people had said, Ron, you probably need to read this. They're all sitting on this bookshelf behind me. All 5 copies.
And you didn't read any of them?
I never read it. It's too stubborn.
But you still took the book 4 additional times.
Oh, I thank you so much. I didn't want to insult them and say, sorry, you're the 3rd person to give me this book. I'm really hard-headed. I accepted it graciously. And it was ultimately, I met with a business owner, completely different industry that I had met a decade prior. And I reached out to him. He's always been a great, kind of person to talk to. And he said, Ron, 6 months ago, I went down this journey with EOS. And he said, I think it's time for you to do it as well. And I went ahead and leaned in and embraced and did it. It was fantastically hard. I'll just give you an end point. If you read the book Traction, it tells you that when you start adopting these principles, you'll turn about 30% of your staff. We churned about 35% of our staff over the next 18 months. Completely redesigned, recalibrated this company and what we stand for and the people on this team. So they are all fully aligned with me as the CEO and owner of this business. We are rowing in one direction. There are no, if you are rowing in a different direction, it is called out, and you either start rowing in our direction or you're not here. And all of my leaders are aligned with me. That doesn't mean I'm right or wrong. That means that I believe what I believe and I'm pointing us in a direction. And if you're a leader on my team, then you're aligned with me. And if you're not aligned with me, you could be a wonderful person. I'll have a beer with you on the weekend, but you're not on my team.
I want to clarify this. When some people hear that and hear that you want a team of yes men, I think that
It's anything but.
right. But I think I just want to kind of dive into that a little bit,
Yeah.
because rowing in the same direction as somebody is different than agreeing with them and not having disagreements throughout the process.
Yes. So I'm looking over here. I have like a book, a bunch of my quick reference books here. I'm seeing if it's over here. One of my favorite books that was transformational to our business and our culture was Patrick Lencioni's 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. We started book clubbing that at One Firefly in 2019 as a part of our onboarding process with EOS. And so I'm pointing that out because when you look at the foundation of the 5 dysfunctions, a lot of dysfunction in business is because of a lack of trust. The leaders trusting each other, the team members not trusting leadership. And when there's a lack of trust, I'll inverse that. When there is trust, then it frees up the next layer, which is healthy conflict. And in a place where people trust each other, it means, Brent, that I'm allowed to disagree with you. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to disagree with you, and I'm going to tell you why I disagree with you. And someone else is going to say, well, I agree with your point, but not your point, but I agree with your third point. And you're going to deliberate, and it's in a safe space where everyone, even the quiet people, feel ready and comfortable to speak up and share their thoughts. Now, ultimately, in 5 dysfunctions, you then rally around the decision that is ultimately decided upon, and then everyone goes towards achieving those goals. So when I say rowing in the same direction, it does not mean there has not been healthy amounts of conflict. If my leadership team is listening to that, they know we practice this really well. We love to disagree with each other, and there's healthy disagreements often. I'm not going to say every L10, which is our weekly stand-up meeting, is a fight, but on occasion there are disagreements, healthy disagreements on what we should do. But ultimately, when a decision is made, everyone rallies around it, and particularly in the way they represent those decisions to their team members, right? What is unacceptable is then back talking or saying, we're going to go do this. I don't agree with this, but we got to do it because the boss said we got to go do that. That is poisonous and toxic to a business. And there's a version of our business where that was happening. And it's really hard to get your flywheel turning faster and faster if you have that toxicity in a business. And so by the way, it's not like you do that one time, you book club it and you're solved. It's something that we work on diligently with focus. Always, it's an ongoing effort. But the beauty when you have your team members in a culture of safety and trust is that when they understand where you're going and you've paused as a leader. For example, one of my, I won't say flaws, but characteristics is I can move fast. When you choose that direction and take the time to explain to the team where we're going and why we're going there, and you take questions so that everyone feels heard, then you say, go. Now everyone's doing their part to move in that direction. And the reality is you get there faster. I mean, that's the only way that I can describe that despite all the turmoil in the custom integration market, right? You guys are here. We talk to integrators every day. How could One Firefly continue to grow in this economy? Through the ups and the downs, the good and the bad, the trials and tribulations. It's because, we're scrappy, we're resourceful, and it's not Ron. If it was Ron, my goodness, we wouldn't go very far. But there's 80 fireflies, all pointing in the same direction, trying to help small businesses grow and trying to help them understand, what is the marketing things they should be doing and why. And, a couple of years ago, we launched our hiring business as well, Amplify People. And we handle those scenarios and help integrators find talent. And because we're resourceful and scrappy, and we have tremendous levels of healthy conflict, that's how we're able to make better decisions. I'll just close on this thought. I'm a big believer in meritocracy, which is the ideas that win at One Firefly aren't always Ron's ideas. They aren't always Taylor's or Andrew's or Kendall's or some of our other leaders. We try to always give the best ideas the airtime to be deliberated and discussed. And if it's a better idea, and if it's a member of our lead concierge team that came up with it, cool. Let's go rally around and let's go do that thing. So it's not about hierarchy or tenure that decides good ideas. Good ideas are born by people willing to speak up in a culture where people are incentivized to speak up. And I think that's been kind of some of the magic at One Firefly.
One thing that you would comment on that allowed you to pivot, allowed you to change and listen, is that you have a level of self-awareness that seems like it is very powerful. And I think a lot of people are not self-aware. Like, most people are not. Did you always have that? Or was that something that you were forced to based on some event, pain, or failure?
I think that I was always confident. And the problem when you're young and dumb is that can be read as arrogance. And if people talk about the Ron Callis that was 21 that worked at Lutron, there's probably more than a few people that would have called me arrogant. And the Ron of today would look at that kid and call him arrogant. And I think life has a funny way of humbling you. And if you really want to be humbled, go start a business. And that'll humble you real quick and real nice. And if you're strong and gritty and resourceful and have the right goals in mind, then you persist and can ultimately thrive. And I would say today we thrive. I thrive. But I've always been a lifelong learner. A couple of habits I have. I listen to educational content 1 to 2 hours a day, 7 days a week since 2014. That was when I had a really bad back. I have a bad back notoriously, from my wrestling career as a youth through 2014. I mean, when I say bad back, like I pick up a pencil, I could be a limp noodle and collapse on the ground and I can't move, like that bad. And I started walking, and I discovered walking, is alternative to surgery. And when I discovered walking, I discovered podcast. And when I discovered podcast, I reawakened my brain. It was life-changing for me. And what makes me happy is to be learning. And I look at that point in 2000 when I graduated college through 2014, I felt that my brain was starved for new knowledge because I was so busy being busy, trying to run a business and survive and be the guy with all the answers. Now, today, I just had a talk with one of my leaders. I was like, I don't want you to have any answers. I want you to facilitate the conversation from your team that will put the ideas on the board of which you can help facilitate picking the answers.
What are some content that you'd recommend right now that you're listening to? What are you listening to today or yesterday?
Oh, so I'll go to my podcast list. So I enjoy the world of audio content. Now, I'm not a YouTuber. I was just on a meeting with a good integrator buddy, and he says he loves YouTube. He's on YouTube every day. That's not me. I like to blend self-help with some of my hobbies. I'm into cryptography, cryptocurrencies. So I have all my crypto content. I have financial macroeconomics, one of my hobby. I like to understand big patterns of economics in the world and what drives those changes. So I listen to those types of shows. And then I love history. So I'm a history buff.
Give us one specific that the listening.
Sure. If you always want to just hear, I'll just go down my list. I'll give you a low hanging fruit that's always usually interesting. TED Radio Hour, which is usually interesting. We Study Billionaires is a financial podcast. They have 2 types of content. They have content on general investing, but they also have once a week a crypto show. They color code their shows. So if you download We Study Billionaires, the orange shows are the Bitcoin shows. Lex Friedman is this He's a savant software guy that interviews people across all genres, world leaders, science and tech, history. He'll cover aliens. I mean, A to Z. His ability to cover content is, you have to be ready to lean. His shows are usually 3 hours. The Artificial Intelligence Show with Paul Roetzer and Mike Kaput comes out every Tuesday. I listen to every show as soon as it comes out so I can stay at the forefront of all the changes in AI and large language models. Mm-hmm. Raoul Pal, the journeyman, he covers broader macroeconomics and cryptocurrencies. Ed Milet is more self-help, and he interviews just a lot of, what was that, Brent?
Matt likes Ed.
Max, like, yeah. I like it. I'm not a religious guy, don't throw tomatoes at me. He gets a little religious-y, but so that turns me off a bit, but I like a lot of his entrepreneurship drive, athletic performance, business performance content.
That's great.
Hey, Ron, I just want to interrupt real quick. Obviously, amazing list, right? And you've built this list over time. I think one consistent thing that I come across when working with business owners is they'll listen to what you just did and said, I don't have time. I can't imagine that long list. It's excuse after excuse. And really it's mindset stuff, right? And I'm sure you've read Atomic Habits, James Clear. It's all about starting small, right? So if you were to give some advice to a business owner who wants to change his mindset from I'm stuck, I can't grow, whatever, what is one habit that you would recommend them start? And remember, start small. What's one habit you'd recommend them start to help shift their mindset so that they can reinvest in themselves as leaders?
I want everybody listening to be terribly selfish and to take care of themselves first. And that's something I started doing in a very crawl, walk, run fashion. I mentioned in 2014. I accelerated that journey in the summer of 2023. I was at a business conference and I drank too much. And in that moment, it was a flashbulb. I told myself, I'm never doing that to myself again. Most people listening could talk about being at conferences and having some version of that story. I've been at conferences, I've probably been to many, many, many hundreds of conferences since 2000. And I also had always carried this desire to refine a version of athleticism and healthiness of my youth. And so although I was walking regularly, and that was not only good for my heart and good for my back, but it was also good for my brain because I used it to either meditate or used it to consume content. But now 2 years ago, I stepped up my willingness to put in the time to actually get fit. I'm now at 47 years old. I'm the fittest I've been probably since I'm 21. My heart rate is the lowest it's ever been in my life. My blood, and I see a functional doctor, and I try to take the right type of supplements so that I'm healthier. And I say all of that, I'm being selfish because I take care of myself. I work out every morning, 6 days a week, usually for 90 minutes. And Matt, I know you do a version of that as well. You and I have shared some thoughts on that. But the version of me now that is coming to work every day, oh my goodness, it's times 10 the version of me that was showing up when I wasn't doing that. And so I'm better, I'm sharper, I'm faster, I have better memory and recall, I have more energy, I drink less coffee, I drink nearly zero alcohol, and I feel more empowered and on, if you will, to have fun in my business and to work with my team and to work with my clients and to grow this thing. So that would be my recommendation, is find a way to find your healthy habits, whatever those might be, and work on you, because a better you is going to be better for your spouse. It's going to be better for your kids. It's going to be better for your friends. It's going to be better for your team. It's going to be better for your customers. And I couldn't think of anything more wise in terms of prioritizing than fixing you so that you could then be in a better place to help others.
So you're fitter, mentally in a good place, healthier, business growing. What's next for One Firefly?
Growth.
Is it growth? Growth is growth is always what's next. But really what's next?
I would love to say I don't want to overcomplicate things. What is wonderfully keeping me on my toes, and it's frightening and exciting, is the world of AI. AI is coming at all of us, more white collar jobs than blue collar jobs. It's coming at us faster than I would say 99% of the people listening have any idea of what's changing and about to change in society over the next 2, 3, 4 years. And as a service business, I need to be on my absolute best game to be in a place to use these new technologies and capabilities to benefit our clients and to enable that I have a higher probability of running a successful business. And I feel this fire in my belly that if I don't stay on top of this and figure it out, like it could be bad. It could be bad for me personally, professionally, for my team. I care about the livelihoods of my team. I care about the livelihoods of my clients, and I want to help them. So I'm prioritizing that, so much so that I'm going back to school, officially going to school. I signed back up, and I'm going to be a student at MIT in their new tech CEO program. I actually start Monday. And their program is for executives that are managing business, technology businesses in times of disruption. And AI is one of the more disruptive technologies that the human race has ever encountered. And it's not all doom and gloom. I believe there can be tremendous prosperity on the other side of it. But I think society and our world is going to be very, very different on the other side of this. And I want to be in pole position to help people. So that's what has my undivided attention.
If you look at in history, that's great. Right? If you look at in history, there's been no technology that has destroyed economies as opposed to growing them. Now, there's been individuals that have been hurt, but in the macro level, you like macro, it's been universally and 100% positive. So I'm very positive as well as what this can be. It's just personally, we got to each figure it out.
Well, there's periods of disruption. So an easy reference point is late 1800s, 80% of the global workforce was in the food business.
Mm-hmm.
And today, in 2025, about 3% of the global workforce is in food production. Mm-hmm. And there was a point when the industrial age happened and the steam engine were born, there was a severe period of disruption, 10 to 15 years, where large swaths of society were put out of work. And they didn't know what that next job, an IT director job didn't exist exactly in 1880. And so that transition period, I think some version of that is upon us as a society. And I think it's an opportunity as an entrepreneur and a problem solver to learn how to, see the glasses half full. And how can I learn about these technologies and help my team learn about these technologies so that their careers are in a better place with confidence, so they'll be nicely employable into the future and our business can prosper into the future. And there's no doubt it has my undivided attention.
Great.
This has really been an amazing time with you, Ron. Thank you so much for all the sharing that you did. Tons of lessons, I think, come out of this. Share with our audience how they can get in touch with you, your business. You guys put out a lot of really incredible content out there.
Yeah, I would say check out our website, onefirefly.com. We also have our hiring business, amppeople.com. And I'm pretty active, both business, the business, One Firefly, and Amplify People are active on LinkedIn, as I am personally very active on LinkedIn. I'm also on Twitter, but I'm more of a lurker on Twitter. I use Twitter, or not Twitter, but X, to follow a lot of news feeds on some of my interests. I don't do as much posting on X, but LinkedIn, you'll find me pretty regularly posting.
Cool. Thank you.
Well, this has been great, Ron. I appreciate your time. We've had an awesome conversation. Love your journey. Love learning about all that process and what's made you a great leader in this space. So thank you for spending an hour with us here, Ron.
It's been my honor. You guys are amazing at what you do. You help so many people, and I'm honored to be here on your show.
That's fantastic.
Thank you, Ron.
Well, as always, this is the end of another episode of the Flywheel Effect. If you've enjoyed this episode, please give us a like, give us a follow, or share it with someone you think you'd find value in it too. And until next time, I'm Brent Sonnek-Schmelz, along with Matt Bernath with the Flywheel Effect. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for tuning in to the Flywheel Effect. Our journey through the intricate world of luxury home services continues to be fueled by your passion for excellence and innovation. If you found value in our conversations today, don't forget to follow us wherever you get your podcasts. More insights and resources. Visit us online at growwithvital.com. Until next time.